how can you best mitigate the effect of shift work, like 24-hour shifts, such as naps to catch up on sleep? And then how do you not nocebo yourself into thinking you'll have a bad day because you didn't get enough sleep or some other factor that is far from ideal?
I can start.
Yeah, all right.
So this is something that I think both of us have some experience with, having been through periods of time where we did 24, 28-hour shifts somewhat regularly. And there's not a great way to get, quality sleep during that period of time, particularly when those shifts can be unpredictable. So there may have been some of those shifts where I was able to get some sleep during the shift. There are some where I had to be awake, alert, and doing things the entire time. And obviously there ends up being a consequence afterwards. Some of those days after the shift, you'll crash harder than others, or if you end up getting some sleep on the shift, maybe you don't sleep as much. And so the unpredictability, the variability is problematic. It results in you generally not feeling awesome. And I think that is unfortunately probably part of the deal with doing 24-hour shifts with any degree of regularity. You're not going to feel completely awesome or completely normal all the time. If they're more spaced out and relatively infrequent, then you can try to get on as consistent of a sleep schedule as you can in between, and that'll restore some semblance of normalcy. But just the idea with sleep in general, and this should be the takeaway if you listen to our podcast on sleep that we did with our friend, Dr. Gordon, is that consistency is kind of what tends to be the name of the game here. In particular, if we can get, like our patients who we have with insomnia, if we can get them waking up at the same time every single day, then that ends up resulting in developing sufficient sleep drive over time, such that they end up kind of falling into a more normal sleep-wake cycle, a rhythm. But obviously this is a big barrier to having a consistent sleep schedule. You just have to do the best you can in terms of consistency. As far as the other part of the question, where it had to do with not kind of crushing yourself by thinking you're going to have a bad session just because you didn't get enough sleep or some other factor, I think this comes into the discussion I had earlier comparing external versus internal load. So external load being the absolute weight on the bar, whereas internal load describes the response to that training stimulus that we measure using RPE. I think that for people who have excessive focus on the importance or the significance of the external load, they put all their value and self-worth on the absolute weight on the bar, I think you're going to have some trouble with this situation, right? Because you're going to put so much value on lifting a particular weight on a particular day at a particular time, and your life, the cards are just not going to fall that way. You're going to get to that day, that time, go to lift that weight, and maybe it doesn't go, right? And that's tough. That's why we like having more, as Jordan said, malleability, flexibility in your training program, where you view the training process differently. You don't view the training process as something where you have to lift a specific weight. Rather, you're saying, the weight on the bar, the reps I'm doing, is merely a strategy to elicit this response that I'm trying to get, right? And in that sense, you can change the weight on the bar and not freak out about it. Rather, you can pat yourself on the back for saying, I got the desired stimulus for where I am today at this particular time based on how I'm performing at this moment, given everything else in my life that I may or may not have control over, right? So it can almost become a win when you go into that session. You use your auto-regulation strategy like RPE, you adjust the load accordingly, you complete the whole session. That's awesome. That's a win. You're doing more than just about anybody else out there who is doing 24-hour shifts, guaranteed, right? Instead of viewing it as, I was supposed to squat 500 today, right? But I could only squat 455. I suck, right? Big difference in how you view that in terms of the training process. So this has a lot to do with kind of how, if we're going to be goal-oriented, the nature of goals that we use. Are the goals we use performance-based, right? Where you insist on performing, lifting a particular weight? Are they outcome-based, like I'm lifting to win only? If you ain't first, you're last, right? Or are they process-based goals, right? Where I'm going to train all 4 sessions that I'm supposed to do, I'm going to get my conditioning in, et cetera, and that's my win for the week because my life is crazy like this. So that's the way I view this, is just reframing how I view the training process in general.
Yep. I think the only thing I have to add is, like, if you were trying to set yourself up for success, you would want to control or maximize the variables that are under your control as much as possible. So, for example, you're on a 24-hour shift. That doesn't mean, yeah, I'm going to skip 3 different meals and just have, breakfast, for example, before leaving the hospital.
And 3 Red Bulls.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, that's going to be it. So, if you have your nutrition relatively under control with a health-promoting dietary pattern, your training is set up to allow some flexibility rather than having very rigid processes, and then again, ultimately ascribing less sort of importance to any single session, any single exercise, or any single sort of even input into your training. I mean, I would just assume that you're going to PR anyway, for example.
Yeah.
Like if it's me, I don't work outside of Barbell Medicine anymore. This is my main baby, but I wish I could get assigned to a night shift, because if I go on night shift, I'm going to PR. Historically, whenever I'm on night shift, PR start raining out of nowhere, and I have no idea why. I have no reason to stay up at night now. I'm not a degenerate, so I can't. So I can't do it. But yeah, I would just assume, all of the things being equal, that you're going to do great. So having that positive kind of outlook on stuff, good nutrition, and then I don't know that I would recommend naps, because I just feel like that's not really going to help. It's like it could help acute performance, but to the extent it compromises sleep drive later on, it's probably net negative. So probably wouldn't do that. Would just go in and train and go on with my life, because
that's a good summary of this whole deal.
That's right.
Train and go on with your life.
Yeah, exactly. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for coming out here, Norfolk, for our first seminar back. Really appreciate it.